What is up, people? So welcome back to the channel. So today is obviously deadlift day, as you may have noticed. So I did 265 there for my top set. It was okay. Didn't move as nice as I wanted to, but look, we moved. Anyway, we're on to my back offs now. And for the last 2 months, my deadlift has been programmed the way that I've only been doing one set of conventional deadlifts, one set of like normal competition deadlifts, and then after that, I'm into banded deadlifts. So this block, I am up in the ante with a purple band. So that is in around 60 to 80 pounds of tension at the top between each band. So I know that plus 195 or 200. So I've got 4 sets here and a ramping set. So they're escalating sets, which is nice after doing a top set approach, going into some ascending back off sets. So the way they're programmed at the moment is to go for a set at 5, at 6 and at 7, and then I repeat. So the main thing we're really trying to do with the band here is they're trying to improve timing of hip extension. So you may even notice in my top set, I get a lot of quads off the floor, but my hips extend way too early. We're trying to alleviate that with the band, because again, if you extend the hips too early with the band, what happens? Well, you have to output more force and more power as you get towards the top because the band tension increases. So if you do that with the band, you're just going to get pulled forward and you're going to really feel it in your lower back. So it's using some type of constraint to allow you to improve timing, right? So it's a negative reinforcement if you fall out of position against the band, whereas if you keep your position constant, you're going to improve your position and the rep is going to feel much smoother. The easiest way to conceptualize the deadlift, in my opinion, is to think about it as a push and a pull. So this variation in particular, because you do have to time your hip extension so well, it does really reinforce that cue. So in the beginning stages, as you're bringing the bar to your knees, you're thinking about pushing away from the floor with your quads. And then as you get to your knees, you're thinking about the hip extension part. So using your glutes towards that part, right? So quads at the bottom, glutes towards the top. And this is one thing that I see in a lot of clients when they start and they're starting to do deadlifts for the first time, is that they think about it as too much of a pull. They don't utilize their leg drive at all off the floor. And what happens is they just end up using a lot of their lower back to get the bar off the floor in the beginning stages. What you'll notice when I'm actually doing these sets is I'm spending a lot of time trying to wedge myself into that bottom position. And the reason I'm trying to do that is because when I get into the bottom position, I want everything from my feet driven into the floor to my upper back as tight as possible, right? Because that bar doesn't want to move from the floor and it needs me to be rigid if I want to output a lot of force and get it to here without flexing completely into this position. So what I'm trying to do is, as I'm holding onto the bar and trying to pull the tension out of it, I'm trying to wedge my knees into my elbows. I should feel as if I have complete tension in my quads and in my glutes, and then from there I can essentially just drive through the floor. But the main thing with this is that you don't think about it like a squat. So you don't want to get your legs into a position where you're pretty much in this position, right? You want to still think about it as you are hinging. So you're coming into this hip extension part in here, you're grabbing the bar, but then as you're just bringing your knees forward to wedge in, so you can still use those quads off the floor. So when you're setting up to the bar, make sure you're almost thinking about kind of rooting your feet into the floor. From here, I'm pretty much thinking about kind of activating my hamstrings as well, my glutes. Then obviously breathe into my belt brace, reaching down and grab the bar, pull the tension out, big breath in.
1, 2, press. 1, 2, press. 1, 2, press.
Now, I always find benching on this bench much easier, and it's similar to what I was talking about in the last video about increasing surface area to bench. So these Thompson fat pads, or this Rogue fat pad, it's thicker than the Eleiko bench. It's also denser than the Eleiko bench. So because of that, your back is more supported, and as a result of that, you're able to get a little bit more kind of power output through the bottom position. It does feel way comfier, but it is a little bit of a cheat code. And if you're using something like this very often and you compete using Eleiko, then you're probably going to take a little bit of kilos off your bench when you do come into competition. Because like I've trained on this for a number of weeks before in previous blocks, and then I go out to the Eleiko bench and I have to take like 5 to almost 10 kilos off of my bench to keep things within the same intensity zone. 6 sets of bench reps up there, and the main thing we're trying to prioritize within this block is early rate of force development. So you can see that work up there to a relatively heavy set at a 7. So this is going to be my load exposure for the day, and then after that we're dropping down the load each set to essentially keep the bar speed the exact same. So when we think about like effective reps for strength, unlike hypertrophy, where with hypertrophy the closer you get to failure and your bar speed starts to slow down, you're getting more effective reps for that goal. For the likes of strength, that's not necessarily the case, right? The closer you get to failure with strength, it's actually going to have a little bit of a negative impact to your long-term development, because per rep, the closer you get, the more fatigue you're going to build up, right? That fatigue, if that accumulates over the course of a week, accumulates over a training block, you might not necessarily be able to make the load increase that you need on your top end load exposure every single week. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to limit that in this block by ensuring that I do have one set that's quite heavy, quite challenging. It's going to give me that stimulation to build some neural adaptations, some nervous system adaptations. And then those back off sets, they're going to be, again, low fatigue and prioritizing that early rate of force development. What is early rate of force development? Early rate of force development is essentially like you going from 0 to 100, right? It is how strong you are at the very start of a set. When you think about it when you get onto the platform, when you go on to do your opener, you don't have any rep before that building up to it, right? You have your warm-ups, of course, but you have nothing before that to accumulate any fatigue. Same when you go for your second attempt, and same when you go for your third attempt. Those reps, you're essentially going into the fresh, and they're going to be the most specific to strength. So the first reps in a set, they're going to be the most specific to strength. The ones where you get towards the end and you're actually getting closer to failure, they are not as specific, because they're going to be prioritized then late rate of force development. So you continuing to accumulate force and output force as you get more and more fatigued. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep bar speed the exact same, but get that load exposure first, and then after that, just prioritize on moving the bar as fast as possible and accumulating a lot of volume, but doing it in a low fatigue state. So we're prioritizing that bar speed. So when it does come to doing the overhand grip pull down, the kind of main muscles that you're trying to target here are the upper back as opposed to lats. Now, the reason why this is the case is because you're going to be in more internal rotation, right? So you're going to be in more of this position where your hand is coming forward, and most people are going to do a little bit of a lean back. So in this kind of path of motion here, as we're going like this, what's going to be biased is going to be the likes of your teres major, your rhomboids, as well as your rear delts, okay? Your lats, they're going to work better when you have your arm a little bit closer to your side and you're going into external rotation. So external rotation is essentially when your palm is going up, okay, and kind of keeping your bicep towards the ceiling, versus what we're doing here is our arm is kind of positioned away from us and we're almost going with our palm down to the ground as opposed to positioned up. So in this path of motion, especially with the back arch, you're putting your upper back in a better position to pull on the actual handles as opposed to your lats. Now, that's not to say that's a bad exercise. It's a good exercise. Your upper back still needs to be trained too. However, if you are struggling to grow your lats, it's probably not the best option to be doing. So something like a palm facing you, pull down is probably going to be better. An underhand pull down is going to be better. But again, if you're looking to grow your upper back, you want thicker upper back, you want thicker teres major, all those muscle groups around that area. This is a good exercise to do. Now again, what I'm trying to think about here is when I am sit down at the seat, I'm thinking about calf raising up into the pad. This is going to stabilize my feet into the floor, knees up against the pad. It's going to keep my lower body as rigid as possible. And then essentially when I'm grabbing onto the handles here, I'm trying to think about leaning back slightly. It's going to allow me to get into a little bit more internal rotation. And then just think about pulling my elbows out and down.
They don't need them.
They don't?
No.
Oh, we put them on these.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I gotcha.
So, I have these ring things.
Yes. But then you're they call you. I remember.
This single arm pull down is my final exercise of the day. It's only 4 exercises a day. The main difference between the wide grip pull down and then this, and why this is targeting your lats, is for the exact same reason which I discussed in the last kind of segment, right? What you'll notice here, I'm trying to keep my palm in this more externally rotated position, or my palm supinated, my arm in this externally rotated position, my palm up, and I'm trying to maintain this position out in front of me. Notice I'm not directly underhead, because like once you go directly underhead, you're probably, to get your arm up overhead, you're probably going to have to internally rotate your arm slightly. And as you go into this position here, what's going to start moving is slice your teres major, as it kind of pulls you down into this position, and then you find here. So I'm starting with the cables positioned out in front of me. So if I bring my arm up and try to maintain this externally rotated position, this is about as far as I can go before I need to start internally rotating the arm. And as a result, then the lats are going to be contributing less. So that's essentially how I'm going about this exercise. So just keeping the palm towards the ceiling as best I can. Think about pushing away from this and then driving down into the side. I'm not trying to use my bicep to pull. I'm more so just trying to think about leading from the elbow. You probably notice towards the end of the sets as well, I am not coming down all the way. I'm kind of doing like almost a half rep. And that's essentially just to get in a few length and partials, something I've been playing around with towards the end of my sets, especially on something like lats. Here to here is going to be very difficult, and if that's what I'm counting as my full reps, I'm going to cut my volume short. Whereas if I have a little bit more energy here to get a little bit more tension, you know, I may as well utilize it. So we are gonna wrap up this video here. I hope you did enjoy it. I know it's been a little bit boring. However, if there's one really important thing that you need to understand when it does come to improving consistency in anything, whether that is your nutrition, whether that is your training, whatever that is that showing up consistently is the hard part, and understanding that it is not always going to be very exciting to do so. It's not always going to be very sexy. And this week I'm off to New York, right? So I'm not going to be vlogging when I'm there. I'm not a fucking travel vlogger. I am a powerlifting and bodybuilder vlog channel. So I want to show you my training. I want to show you my nutrition and how I'm going about that. And I'm not going to bring my camera to New York to vlog that, because I want to enjoy myself while I'm there. And there's plenty of good travel vloggers who have great channels, and I'm just not about that. So I knew that I wanted to vlog today, and I knew that I didn't really have a huge amount to share. I wasn't going to go through anything groundbreaking at all. There hasn't been any kind of major updates in regards to the bulk, you know, since last week. We're probably not really going to see many huge changes on this like bulking update for another 2-3 months, because muscle gain happens over a longer period of time, especially when you are more advanced. But showing up is important, and keeping these coming out on a weekly basis is important, for me at least. And I want to look back on these the similar way I look back on my prep videos, and you know, say, yeah, I'm happy I showed up on that day. I'm happy I put something out, because like, you know, there could be something in this video that I said so far that has provided some value. I think sometimes as well I can be quite critical on myself whether what I'm putting out is somewhat useful. But you know, we're going to keep at it nonetheless. A bit rambling now, so if you did enjoy the video, make sure to like it, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next week when I'm back from New York, and hopefully we have some more strength on the way.